Good noon, everyone. Thank you for joining here. I try to be as loud as possible, but most of the talk is just looking at the screens. So this talk is going to be about generative art, but aside from the term, it's mostly going to be trying some code, very simple code, and seeing some exciting patterns and change them and evolve over these patterns. So I will start with what is generative art, and my talk will not have any slides because it's going to be just some codes and browsers. So in the conference that was for part of the JSConf last year, I go to one of the workshops that was about generative art, and it was running by Tim Holman. He was such a cool guy, and he presented some of these stuff. So basically what generative art means is it's an artwork that it's created by some autonomous systems. So this means that like basically some computers, so you write some algorithms and these computers generate these arts. And most of the time they have some random elements, which means every time you refresh the screen, since they're random, you might get different patterns. One of the cool thing about it is that every time you're creating something that no one has ever seen before, because it's random. So for example, this one, if I refresh, every single time it's going to change because it has some randomness. And there is never going to be a case that you see something twice. I can keep continue with refreshing this for the whole talk, but we will not do that. And there are some references that I use, and I will first start with suggesting you to like watch them or like use them if you had some free times. And this one is basically these awesome tutorials, which you will see some of them in my talk. And in this website, you will see different artworks, generative arts, and it's by Tim Holman. And one of the coolest thing it has is that he writes something called tutorial markdown. And it's like, if you go through like this one. So first we will see on this section, we will see just the code, but the cool thing is that the left part, that is when you scroll down, the code is written somewhere and you will actually see the results in the canvas as you scroll down. So this also can be used like if you want to write a tutorial yourself, and it's like most of his work on available on GitHub, so we can all use this and like get some ideas from like how to write more interactive tutorials that people can see. And also this is a very cool website by Andres Hof, if I'm right. So he has done like generative art for so many years, and if all of his work is available on GitHub, and if I'm right, most of them are with Python. But this is just a simple glance of what are the stuff that you can do with like some simple codes and like some starting with simple patterns and make them more and more complex. Or like some of them are some animations. Or like this is just by code. Or like there is some other stuff like this. Or like this is stuff that evolve over time. But we're not going to be that complex, and I even don't know how to do that yet. But we will start with more simple ones. So we will start with that. How we will start with that? By going through some code. So basically, most of this code is using HTML5 Canvas. So all we will do is using some simple functions like draw, line to, fill, stroke, which are like simple stuff for drawing on canvas. And we will not use nothing more complex than for loops. So what we will see here, aside from some like commented code, we will get to that. Each commented section will make it more and more complex. So what this code does so far is it just set up the canvas size, and we will have a draw function that says move the X, move your like, assuming it's like a cursor. So it's like we will move it first to X and Y, then we will line to like another position, and it will just say stroke. And this will create the line for us. And then we have to call this function at some point. what we did at this point is we draw from 0 to 0 from the size. So what we will do, it will create just that. So it started from 0, 0, and it goes from 400 and 400, X and Y. So it will just create that one. But this is not an art, although it can be art too, but it's not that interesting. So what we will do is we will create a random element to that. And it's that, the other part of the comment code, which is, so what we will do for this time is we will have a random element that says at some times the line will go from right to left or left to right. And this will be just that. So what it does is we will call the math.random, that will generate a random number from 0 to 1. And half of the time it's more than 0.5 and half of the time is less. And by this, we will decide if it's left to right or right to left. And this if and else statement is just going to create a line from 0, 0 to width and height, or from the other way around. And we will see that now. So if I refresh, at some times we will see a random line based on it is left to right or right to left. But this is not that much of interesting too. Now, when it will get more interesting is if we add for loops. So what if we draw this left to right or right to left line 200 times, 20 times from 0x to the width and from 0 height to the latest height. So I will show you first the final result, and then we will make it simple to see how that complex looking thing has been created by just 2 for loops. So this is that what will happen. So every time I refresh it, since the left and right is random, so it's going to be a new thing. Yay! So we will get to like how, if we look at that, when I was first looking at that code, because it was from that tutorial, I was like, how all of them are getting created? It wasn't that clear to me. What I did to make it more clear for myself was, instead of running 2 for loops, I just said, let's run one of the for loops that is just for the first X, so the X horizon, whatever that one is. So I will remove the inner for loop. And what this one does is we have a step. Our step is 20, 20. So all it does is that it starts from 0x, and every time it calls the draw function, it adds the step size to the X. So every time we're moving the X when we're actually starting the line, and the line size will be 20 by 20, which is our step size. But this time we will call it only on X. It's not dead. Believe in me. It is dead. That's what I was hoping for. See, as this exactly y is undefined, I should put y 0. But you know, this is not a bad thing, because this is an art too. This is an fully abstract art widescreen, and some people will pay $1 million for that. I hope find that person. So this is what will happen. So it just from y 0, so it's just one row. So this for loop, what we will do that is it has just run through X. So the second one will go through Y. So we will have a full screen over there. So if I change the Y, we will see like it'll go on the second row. It didn't. Because I should have added this step, which is 20. See, every time it's moving down, down. But all of them are art. But to make it more complex, we will turn back at the other loop. And this time, it will be more clear to us that how that happens. So it has added all the lines. And this is just one of the tutorials. So we will have more stuff. And the other one is this one, which is my favorite. See that thing? So all of that is, so the whole procedure is most of the time the same. So you will start with some simple patterns, then you will rotate, like displacement them, and by adding some random elements. So how we will create that? So first, another thing that we can add is adding colors. So let's assume we have this one, and I have some color palette, and I'm going to add this randomly to that. So first, I'm going to start with that, and then reverse back to the simple version to the complex version of that. Yes, sir. So this is my color palette. It's not any generative art. I just put that there by hand. Yeah, I copied from internet. And in here, I am. So stroke is when we actually create the line. So if we add a style to that stroke, like a color, then it will make that a stroke with that color. And in here, I'm going to choose my colors randomly. Hopefully that'll. Yay! So what it does, my color palette contains red shades and blue shades, and they all like differ. So every time that it's gonna stroke, so it's first before calling that draw function, it's just randomly choosing one of the numbers in the array and pass it to the function, and it's gonna stroke with that one and create this one. There is another function for the canvas that is fill. So instead of stroking, we will fill the cubes as well. And it'll be like this. And again, since it's random and the colors are random, every time they're going to be like this. So now we will get to this, that how we created that one. So none of these are like more than 20 line of code. And they're all basic codes that like they have some random stuff. So we have a draw function that is for drawing rectangles. And the way to draw rectangles is that you will start with a path and you will tell the width from the start and the end of the rectangle. So for us, we have a width and height. So we will start from the left of it to the right of it. And this three section was for the colors that I just add. So we can keep it or just remove it. And the other one is a stroke, which is actually creating the lines. But like as always, we have some interesting for loops. If I don't have these for loops with this plus or minus, rotate to, translate to, we'll see what we will have actually. So I'm going to commit this for now. Can anyone guess what we will have if we don't have any rotation or like translation? Yeah, all squares with no like displaced squares. Oh, make them circle. Okay. Assuming that this one will work. Yeah, another pure abstract art. Isn't it beautiful? Okay. Thank you. I was just there, you know? Let's see. Thank you, Lachlan. Yeah. So see these squares, they're just flat squares and with no displacement and rotation. So what that line is doing, we will get it back again. Not what I wanted. Yeah. Isn't it cool? See how it goes? Okay. So at this time, sometimes we want to rotate them, like displace them like to right or to the left. So the first line is doing that. So it's like, I'm gonna rotate them here or there. And we have two things. One is rotation, the other one is translating. Translating is just for displacement moving ref to light, and rotation for is actually rotating. What we can try is to not have the rotation and just have the translation to see like how that will look like. And this time we will translate to, instead of just I and J, which was the normal one, we will move the I to the place that we want to translate it to. And this offset is just to make sure that they don't go, because we were sometimes going to translate them. We're going to make sure that they don't go outside, too much outside the cube. So this time we will just have some rotation, some translation. Let me check that too. Is it good, Baklan? Is it going to be another? So they're just, and this is another art, but not exactly what we wanted. So it's translating all of them, but it looks like at some point I removed the randomness because all of them has been translated to some point the same. Let's see. Yeah. Now I'm gonna add the rotations. That's because I kept this one. And the thing that makes this one less rotated and translated than this one is this that we have here. So as the J's become bigger and bigger, this translation too gets bigger too. So this means the more we go down and the more we go down, the translation become more visible. But like if I change it to I, which is for our columns, can we guess what will happen? Yes. Yeah. See? And one of the beauty of generative art is just by changing one variable name, if you don't get widescreen, you will get another new screen. Now let's see. And this is how it was before. Then we will go to this one, which was the one that I started with. So this one basically is combination of like different techniques, which is first we will start with and just creating one of them, one of these squares, and then we will just multiply it by just adding it to each row and each column. Each row and each column, yeah. And we will see what will happen. And first we will start with static version that is like everything will be centered. Then we will add some randomness to move them to the left or right. And then we will generate them over and over again. So again, as usual, we will have like some, and our HTML is only this canvas, which, and the rest of it is some beautiful JavaScript. Yeah, JavaScript can be beautiful. So, and in here we have this canvas, and it's using old jQuery query selector. We will set the size. We will just skip that for a while. And as usual, we will have a draw function. So this time we will gonna create some, and this time we will call recursion, which is calling a function inside itself. So it means that it will reoccur again and again at some stopping point. And first we will have to define this as stopping point. Otherwise, again, you will have a blank screen because you have a ultimate infinite for loop. So for, again, it's like creating a rectangle that is a beginning path, and then from an X and Y to a width and height. And stroke is when it actually draws that. And in here, we will define our stopping step, which is, since we want to like have some squares inside the square, we have to say if the size is less than some point, stop it. So it's not like it's going to be an infinite squares inside each other, and we will stop at some point. At this time, our step size will be, where is it? Yeah, it's that one. Anyway, somewhere. So if it says, so every time we're going to create, decide what is the new size of the inside square, and then at some point we will stop it. What it does so far is that it just creates a new size and it's dividing the square with its parent side and setting the width and height based on the previous one, which based on the bigger one, and we will reduce the steps. So as if these steps means like how many times should I run that, and like the more the steps, it's like the squares will get smaller and smaller. But this side of it is for moving the squares, so we're gonna keep that for now. We're not gonna keep that for now. And this section, since we will see like 2 for loops, that is for the time that we're gonna create it over and over again, so we can remove that for now too, to see the basic version. Cool. And at this time, we're not going to move the square, so we will set the X movement and Y movement to 0. And we will see what we will have this time. Yeah, 1 square. So this means there's something wrong because it should have been 4 squares. So I'm going to take the screen to walk on. So this draw, it says start from 0 to 0 and with the start size and with the start steps. But I didn't tell the start steps. Yeah, we have some tiny squares inside squares. So what we will do now is we will add some movement. So like instead of this one always be at center, we will move the X and Y at some point. And that's when the movement starts. So this time, I'm not going to have like some randomness. So I will just say move the X. I'm going to zoom a little bit. So this means that we have moved the X to 1 point. But like if we move the Y as well, then we can guess what will happen. They will move to down too. So they're to the right and to the down. But we can also change this to negative, so there will be top and bottom, top and left. I'm really bad with directions. Like that. So if we make, instead of like every time it be single thing, we can, every time we can decide this X movement and Y movement and make it random for each tile when we are creating all the rows and the columns. So we will get back to the for loops where we had so at first we will not have the random start steps, we will just have some normal ones. And if we change, and we will say we will change the start steps and we'll see what will happen. So in here we have X direction and Y direction, which was the same as X movement. By movement, I decided to just change the names. So in here we will have, every time we will have some random elements that is from 0 to 1. And this time it will change it every single time. So it's not going to be me getting back to code and change it like from 1 to negative 1. Sorry, it's going to be from negative 1 to 1. So now, since we added the rows and like the columns, we're having each one in different rows and columns. And since they're random for each of them, every time there is a random one selected. And therefore, if we change that, it's going to change this. But we will get back to the start step. So for each tile, the number of the tiles, the number of squares that will be created, it's always 4. But if we change the start steps randomly for each like set of squares, then we will have multiple start steps, and therefore we will have multiple squares, different squares numbers in each tile, which is like that. So some of them are more dense and some of them are more coarse, if That's the right word. So every time, each tile will be random way with some start steps and like moving to right or left. And you can just look at it over and over again. And this way, you know that no one has seen that before. I can continue with that over, but that will be that so far. Thank you. And hopefully my next talk will be combining this talk and my previous talk, which was about React VR. So hopefully I will have a live VR art gallery at my next talk. So we will put all of them in a VR art gallery and see them live. Thank you. Any questions? You will have that forever. Don't worry. You're so good. Don't worry. It's just about if at some point you wanted to try coding, you can. You know what? This was the whole idea of my talk. No, it's just I got into it at the Decompress conference, which was last year, and all the time that I wanted to create some stuff and give a talk about it, but then I decided no, I need to give a talk about it. Therefore, I will have to make some of them. So that's when I actually sit down and like do this stuff. But since it's a thing, so like at your spare time, you can just add some colors, try different things, and that'll be just every time some new things. Questions? Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what I tried to do, but not so far. I just put all the codes on the Git, so but I can have like each feature can be like with color, without color, like some stuff. So it can be the whole process to get. That's it. And another idea that I have, and now it might be a good time to bring it, is for a long time I had this idea of having a spare computer here. So like every time somebody is like having a break or like they just don't want to like do the coding for their project, which sometimes can happen, they can just go there and just change a variable, either see a new art or see a blank screen, which is an art. People all remember that. And therefore, each person can have their own GitHub setup on that project. And when they make a change and push it, then we will have a Toobles art gallery, which we can show off, and we can have some slides of all our art generated together. That'll be it. Thanks everyone for listening. Thank you. Thank you.